In this video, I want to share a DMT experience that I had way back in 2013, the beginning of it. And this one was very bizarre because it was kind of the beginning of a certain journey that I was going to go on throughout my life in terms of things happening to me that's I would say heavy and difficult to deal with. This is basically what instigated the whole difficulty throughout my life, but not in I shouldn't say difficulty as in something negative, but more of a personal growth or soul growth, if you want to call it that. And basically how this went down is I'll start from the beginning, and it was actually in my basement, so where I'm recording right here, and I'm actually sitting in the spot that I was sitting in before, but my room looked a lot different. There was a lot of electronics equipment all around because my dad used to do his work down here. My dad now lives with my brother in a different house, but he used to have a lot of oscilloscopes and power supplies and a whole bunch of electronics equipment on the floor, like resistors and like weird tubes that are for the kind of tubes that you use to line certain wires and stuff. And all of this equipment really contributed to the experiences that I had, because all of this stuff ended up coming to life. I've made videos talking about that before, how the electronics came to life, so I won't go too deep into that. I want to instead focus on a experience that I was having, and these were consecutive experiences. So I was actually smoking DMT a little bit more often because I felt as if I was receiving some sort of message, if you want to call it that. I don't really subscribe to that being anything really real, but I felt as if I needed to receive something, or there was a message that my own subconscious was trying to tell me. And for me at that time, I felt that the DMT would somewhat bring that to the surface. So I was smoking it more, and I actually had my face in front of the TV. Like I wasn't doing it in silent darkness. I was doing it in a room that was actually lit with a TV that was running, and also what was different about this is I was actually listening to music. I was beginning to get into a state of mind where I felt as if my life had some sort of significant purpose. And I think now maybe I've sort of designed that purpose for myself, but in the moment I thought that it was somewhat trying to be handed to me. But now I believe that it's more of my own personal feelings and something that relates to my own ambition maybe. And so I'll get into the actual experience. So I was listening to Tool, actually, because I felt like it was a very fitting type of music to be listening to while I was on this journey. And I felt as if I was getting towards the focal point of some sort of understanding, and I was about to receive some sort of new revelation about myself. And I remember that while I was smoking it, I was listening to Tool, and how DMT mixes with Tool and Danny Carey's drumming. It was just something that was really, really powerful for me, because his drumming is very climactic, and in a certain sense, and how the experience was unfolding, it was also some sort of climax. If you were to listen to a song, it's that point where everything gets very exciting, and there's something's about to be resolved. And I felt that kind of experience very, very heavily, that something was about to happen. And if I had to put an analogy into it, and also the experience itself was completely metaphor based. It was as if it was associating all of these very interesting ideas and doing a this is to that as that is to this thing. And that's actually what I believe psychedelics do to create a lot of very good art, is that they grab what's most interesting or eye-catching, and then kind of merges them into one based on their relationships to each other. So for this, I interpret it as if I was, if you remember the Sonic Genesis games, specifically Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, when you do the special stage to get the emeralds to become super, or I would see that as a type of enlightenment, I think. It was as if I was about to finish the special stage run, and I was approaching the emerald, and then it would play the music that you've gotten the emerald. And while Danny Carey's drumming was going on, there was all of these dimensions and patterns that were going haywire, and it was as if it was ascending upwards, and then it reached a point where it kind of went into this room. I don't even know if I would call it a room. It was kind of like a wired frame base, and it was a specific focal point of some sort. And at this focal point, that was when the drumming was getting completely climactic and reaching its full resolution, I think. And then what I saw was, once I was in this room, this climactic room, I saw this weird wand come out of all of the wire-framed geometry walls, and it was as if a yo-yo went down, and it was a string, kind of, and on the string it was an actual diamond, and it was as if the whole experience was a metaphor for coal turning into a diamond, something solidifying into a solid understanding or a perfect state. And in this experience, I was seeing the diamond was basically 4 edges, and on those 4 edges, I saw what I interpreted as a crosshair, and it was, I can actually show a picture of what I drew after that experience to give you an idea. So the diamond was turned into a crosshair, and what a crosshair basically is with video games, when you're playing the game, you have that the crosshair and the HUD and everything. And how I interpret this experience was that whatever the entity that was in the DMT realm, or maybe it's just me, I don't really know, but we'll call it the Jester, I guess. This presence was basically trying to communicate to me some ultimate understanding about my reality, that it was essentially a video game. And this was the first time that I ever came to that realization, because I've always been really good at playing video games. The games that I would play would be Counter-Strike, Diablo 2 expansion, and StarCraft. So all of those concepts, they were basically saying, hey, real life is the video game. You know, don't waste time playing all these other things. Instead, consider actual life as the game. And it seems like a basic revelation, but to me it was pretty profound, because I never really considered life to be a video game, because usually with video games, it's easier to succeed in them because it's almost as if it's an escape. Because life is harder because it seems real, and there's heartbreak, and there's things that distract you from being productive. So I began to believe that my life, what I was experiencing now, is the only video game that I should be focused on. And ever since then, I've moved away from playing video games, because I feel like it's a waste of time. It's as if I'm doing some sort of Inception where I'm playing a game within a game. You know, why do that when I can just play the real game, and the one that's actually going to change my life for the better if I were to succeed at it. So ever since then, that experience stuck with me, and even though it triggered my psychotic episode afterwards because I took my thoughts too far in terms of what I believed my purpose was in life, and I was jumping to conclusions that I probably maybe jumped the gun on. But just that experience was so powerful to me because afterwards, when I opened my eyes, I would see everything come to life as if it was all digitized, and it was literally, this was just a simulation, and it's a video game. Life is literally a video game. And I was thinking, okay, so how do you win the video game? And I was thinking about all the games that I've played. Well, with Diablo 2 expansion, you're supposed to design a character and level up, and you're supposed to get good at certain crafts and learn how to build your character in a way that is going to be the most powerful. So do you want to be a specialist, or do you want to be a generalist? Do you want to focus on one type of skill set, or do you want to focus on multiple ones? Because if you focus on just one, it'll be very powerful, but you'll be less able to have a variety of skill sets to solve different problems. So that's the difference between, is it better to be a polymath, or is it better to just specialize in one certain thing? And then I would also remember StarCraft. So StarCraft is all about having maximum productivity, so having multiple things on the stove, and how quickly you are at making builds is going to affect how well you perform in the match. And all of these things I'm now taking into consideration and trying to apply into my life, and saying, okay, how can I treat my life as much of a video game as possible to achieve the most out of my life and to get to a higher level. And it's a really interesting thing for me, because when it's fun to romanticize about this, because it was almost like when you're playing a video game and the video game has only just begun, and nothing tragic has happened in the game that makes you have to start I guess shooting bad guys, for instance, in the game. So it was as if I had no HUD, so there was no health bar, there was no ammo bar, and there was no crosshair before that. But then after that incident, it was as if the game basically started, and the not necessarily tragedy, but I guess maybe the monsters are coming out. So now you got to find your weapon, and you have to start fighting. And then it was just a really poetic thing that it was as if I finally got my HUD and my crosshair, and it was like, all right, now we gotta play the game. Now we gotta win this thing. It was as if the game completely just started at that point for me. And after that experience, I went through a lot with my psychosis and trying to really gain a handle on the experiences that I was having. But the person that I am now is something that I'm very happy with. Someone who is remains skeptical, but maybe has a bit of an open mind. I believe that being skeptical is very important. It maintains a balance for me in terms of how I view the world, and I believe that not being skeptical enough, you become unbalanced, and if you're too skeptical, you're still unbalanced too. So there's definitely a sweet spot in there that I try to walk the line of. But I believe that as long as I keep this kind of focus, it should serve me well. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share about that experience. I thought it was a very pivotal moment in my life that kind of changed my perspective on things, and I'm very glad that I had the experience, and I'm glad that I basically am in the position I am now because of all of the experiences that I've had. And I'll basically end this video with more progress on the art piece that I've been working on. Originally, I didn't really like how it was turning out, but I think I'm starting to turn it around a little bit. I'm adding a little bit more detail and making it more cohesive, so I think it's turning out a little bit better. So see you guys in the next video. Peace.